Now, what is service? Is service really the thing you need to make a difference in your company? Let's have a look at it. Now, to define service, it's not that easy. What if you have a 5-year-old child coming into the room and he or she asks you, what is service? How would you explain that? Now, let's try. First of all, you probably know TripAdvisor. Now, for those who don't, TripAdvisor is a website where you can leave a review on a restaurant you visited, or a hotel, or even an amusement park. If we look at all these reviews, and a lot of them could be complaints, a lot of the complaints, almost 8 out of 10, are about service. Now, what do people perceive as service? Let me give you an example. Let's say you go to a restaurant and you order a steak, and you want your steak rare, for example. All of a sudden, your steak is served and it's overcooked. It's cooked too much. Now, what you do, you call the waiter and you say, obviously, there's a problem. Now, the way that the waiter will interact with your complaint, with your remark, is what we perceive as service. It's how he will handle your complaint and what he will do with that situation. That is what we see as service. Now, before we continue and before we can define service, let me take you through a few numbers you probably know. But 62% of people will buy more after a positive experience, and 66 people will buy less after a negative experience. 9 out of 10 people are influenced by online reviews. Now, this is a staggering number. People going online, even if you have been, for example, recommended the latest iPhone by your best friends, you will go online to buy it, and if you see a review, you will be influenced. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to buy it, but you will be influenced. This is absolutely a scary number, if you ask me. 69% of people say that good service depends on speed, on the speed of response. For example, think about the number of emails you get in a day. It's also mind-blowing. And I can show you hundreds of emails I've got where people will congratulate me on responding in a very quick way. So 69% of people think that is a good thing. 7 out of 10 people will say that bad service is when you have to explain something again. Let's say you call the phone company and you explain a problem. They will patch you through to a technician or somebody else who will help you, and you have to explain again. That is again what people will perceive as bad service. 95% of people will talk about a bad service experience, and only 87% will talk about a good service experience. Because when I go to my local restaurant, there's like a small sign on the wall that says, "Did you like it? Tell your friends. You didn't like it? Tell us." So very important. A while ago, we did a survey with 150 companies, and we asked the customers of those companies, which in total are about 6,000 people, what do you think is the most important in terms of hospitality when you go to a company, when you visit a company? Could be any company in any industry. And before the results came in, I already knew what the answers would be. Not exactly, but kind of what the range of answers would be. And what we see here, for example, is that the most answers have to do with the human aspect, the human interaction of people in those companies. Next, we asked those customers, what bothers you the most when you visit a company? And again, we see that, for example, it is mostly human aspects. When they have you waiting too long, when they don't know who you are, etc., etc. Last but not least, we asked them, what do you expect as a minimum when you are welcomed in a company? And again, we see those human aspects, as you will see here, for example, in these results of the survey. Now, in order to define service, let me give you a few examples and let me tell you a few stories. First of all, do you know who Peter Shankman is? Well, probably you don't, because he's not a celebrity. He's just a businessman, just like you and me, probably. And Peter Shankman is somebody who likes two things. He likes his work and he likes steaks. More specific, grilled steaks. Now, Peter was on a flight from Chicago to New York. Just before he goes onto the plane, he sends a tweet into the world. And it's a kind of a joke, because his favorite restaurant is called Morton's. And before he boards the plane, he sends out a tweet saying, "Hey Morton's, can you meet me at the airport with a porterhouse steak when I land in 2 hours? Just to say, I'm glad to go home, I can't wait to have my favorite steak." Now, at Morton's, there is someone who sees this tweet coming by. Now, what do? They have one of their waiters fully dressed in a tuxedo waiting for Mr. Shankman at the airport with a paper brown bag and a porterhouse steak inside. And if you don't believe me, have a look at this picture. Now, did he eat the steak on the spot? I probably don't think so, but it's a great way of getting in touch with your customer. So what is service? It could be paying attention to your customer, but paying sincere attention to your customer. Another great example of customer service is this story. Do you know what this is? It's called tiger bread. Now, have you ever seen a tiger that looks like this? I haven't. It looks more like a leopard or maybe a giraffe. Indeed, a giraffe. Now, there's a small girl in England and her name is Lily. And she's in the supermarket with her mom and she looks at this bread. And she says to her mom, "That doesn't look like a tiger at all." And the mom notices it, just like we just did, and she says, "Well, you're right, it doesn't look like a tiger." And Lily says, "It looks more like a giraffe." And her mom says, "You know what, you should write a letter to the supermarket saying that it should be called giraffe bread." And that is exactly what Lily did. Lily writes this letter to the supermarket, and this arrives on the marketing department. Now, there's a guy, a customer service marketing officer, let's say, and he sees this letter and he thinks to himself, "Wow, this is a brilliant idea. This is really a story behind it." So he writes back a letter to Lily saying, "Dear little girl, you're absolutely right. It doesn't look like a tiger at all." Now, what we're going to do is we're going to change the name of our tiger bread to giraffe bread, especially for you. And so that you can buy your first giraffe bread, I have added a gift card so that you can be the first to buy it. And indeed, this marketing guy, he keeps his promise. And what he does is, in all of their 200 plus supermarkets, they change the name of tiger bread to giraffe bread. And more than that, he actually publicizes the story with the product. Have a look at this. Needless to say that the sales went up with 300%. So again, service might be paying sincere attention to your customer. Now, unfortunately, there's also other stories. There's a lady who has trouble with her digital television. Now, there are a few of the channels that are not working on her digital television, so she calls the customer service and she says, "Look, there's something not working here." And what do they say on the customer service hotline? "Well, madam, you have to go online and there you can solve it." And the lady says, "But you're the customer service, can't you do anything for me?" "No, madam, you have to go online and solve it there." And the lady says, "But why are you then there?" So as you can see, not paying attention or doing the effort for your customer is bad service. Another thing you have to realize in terms of service is that anyone who works for a company should be an ambassador for that company, should be inspiring customers or guests. Now, I run a butler school and we train butlers. So our butlers should be trained in the best possible service. Now, our training is quite intensive and the first 5 days are the toughest ones. We call it Hell Week, just like the Navy SEALs. Why? Because our butlers get a load of information in 5 days. Not only do they have to study it, they also have to apply it immediately. We talk about service, hospitality, eye for detail, anticipation, etc. So, and on the 5th day of the training, we send them to a hotel in the middle of a beautiful town nearby called Bruges. And we send one student to one hotel and they have to do an exercise. And that exercise is, you go into the hotel and you ask to go to the toilets. And you have a look at how the receptionist will help you or what they will or will not do. Have a look at their body language, eye contact. Are they smiling? Maybe they're even escorting you to the toilets. So when they go to the toilets and they come back, they go to the receptionist and they ask for a price for 3 rooms for 4 nights. Now, in this town, you will easily pay 300 euros per room. That's quite a lot of money. If you do that times 3 rooms and times 4 nights, you will end up around 3,500 euros. Now, that is a really big budget. Do you know how certain hotels offer those prices to our butler students? Do you know in what way they are an ambassador, or better said, not an ambassador? Because when you are working for a company or you're representing a company, you should be inspiring people, being an ambassador and giving that passion to them as you would for anyone else. Have a look at how they present their prices. What you see here is how a 5-star hotel presented their prices to one of our students. It's horrible, don't you think? It's just a piece of paper where they've written on the prices. And mostly they will say, with giving that piece of paper, you can also find everything on the internet. Now, that is a horrible way of doing business. Are you agreeing with me? Because if you would buy, for example, let's say a bike or a motorcycle of 3,500, that's also a lot of money. If you go to a bike shop, they will probably give you a brochure with professional photos. And you probably will be able to ride a bike before you buy it. So how you are an ambassador for your brand is hugely important to convey good service to your guests. Now, here you see this picture of a 5-star hotel. And as you can see here, well, this is a 4-star hotel. It's a bit better. They didn't write any mistakes. But what happens when I flip this page? Have a look. Not much better either. That is not the way how to bring over your product to your customers.